I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of Exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B. That was the name date. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, we're back for another episode of Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my buddy Chief John Salka, and we're glad you could join us again. Here we are. We're in New York. So it's not it's on Long Island, right? We're on Long Island.
On Long Island.
We're on Long Island. All right. We're in Sayville, New York,
Suffolk County.
Suffolk County. With again, I'm still learning where I'm at everywhere because I've over the years, every time I've been here or whatever, I get all the counties, I get all the. It's like,
and just to be accurate, we're off exit 59.
Can we talk exits? Well, and
off the LIE,
and you and I, we talk about all these different departments all the time, and once in a while there's so many great departments out on Long Island, but they tend to run together because there are so many.
If I remember correctly, it's around 70, maybe 72 and 75 for each of the counties, Nassau and Suffolk. They're both pretty well developed as far as communities with organized fire departments. So you're looking at almost 150 fire departments just on Long Island.
And great firehouses. Great. First of all, it's just fun. I mean, today, John, we had got a room full of volunteers. A lot of off-duty FDNY guys, some other guys, off-duty police officers.
Absolutely.
And just some great people. The chief here is awesome. The chief was an awesome guy.
Great guy. Very good hosts.
Oh, and Craig, and then Don, Don Hodgkins. I always say this wrong. Hodgkinson. Good God, I'm sorry, Donnie. Retired FDNY guy.
Right.
So it was fun last night for our listeners to sit at dinner and hear John and Don talking about 425 engine and 795 truck and whatever the hell numbers are there. And it's like listening to people in Texas talk about high school basketball and high school sports. They know the names of every single firefighter, where they worked, how they were. But it was fun. We were enjoying.
We did have a great visit over dinner last night.
And how about this place? Beautiful firehouse, beautiful classroom.
Beautiful community. Beautiful community.
Really nice. And you can tell they have their act together. Like I said, good bosses. And the guys and gals in the room were the same way, but this is like being on a cruise ship. I mean, they had like a breakfast.
There must have been 20 hot plates.
Oh,
right.
Oh, and then lunch, and then it's just been a great visit.
Great hospitality.
So Company Officer Academy here, and we did our version for the volunteer. We have the
2-day volley version. Yeah, absolutely. And which the room is exclusively volunteers. Some guys 2-hatters, some guys that are paid also, or retired paid guys. But and it was great talking. It was great talking to volunteers as volunteers. Sometimes we have mixed groups for like 60% career and then like 20% for you volunteers, for you career guys. And in this case, we focused, all day primarily on the volunteer fire service, and certainly a half a dozen or more of the elements of the Company Officer Academy are the volunteer perspective is quite different than a paid perspective, and so we get to concentrate on that all day because everybody in the audience was a volunteer.
Yeah. Well, and it was nice that way, and the dedication, the attitudes. These are people that gave up their weekends. Their whole weekend, actually.
It's a whole weekend too.
Because we're doing the Company Officer Academy here. And there's some things, obviously, we're not going to do roll call. We're not going to do some of the things we're going to cover with the career side. We're not going to waste your time with it. So we're going to fill it in with other things.
And we rolled discipline into most of it here and there where it was necessary under some of the other topics. So they're getting a great, and we're not doing anything different today than we do anywhere else for the volunteers. We pretty much, it's a 2-day program organized to be volunteer specific.
Oh, and besides the fact we were in the state of New York, where our buddy Tom Merrill, his book on the professional volunteers coming out, and
Yeah.
Tommy's such a great guy, such an advocate for the volunteer fire service.
The professional volunteer firefighter.
You know, we've told, I mean, everybody's got, you know, all kinds of feelings about whether they like the Mets or the Yankees or the Sox or the Cubs or whatever. Volunteer versus career, that's fine. Firefighter's a firefighter. One gets paid, one doesn't. And they're both pretty special groups, and it's one family. It's, you know what, actually it is a family, because you know how you have the family where you have the particular brother-in-law, uncle that you don't want to talk to. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with our people.
Absolutely.
So, okay, here's my question for you. And I thought about this the other day. You remember we talked about, we did the show Paying It Forward, you know, firehouse to firehouse. You guys donated your ladder truck to Wichita West, my volunteer fire department. And we came out, Will Norris and I came out and picked it up, and you know, our you know, Ryan Fetzer, our chief, and you know, Chris Basher, our captain, Michael Albert, the assistant, we're all excited. We got the ladder, and you know, it's already been on runs and
tested out and everything too, which was perfect. Right.
It tested out. Oh my God, did it test? That ladder performed. It's like a muscle car. It's a 1981 Seagrave that is not a 1981 Seagrave. It runs like a champ. And then, you know, we've got a new pumper ordered, but like everybody else in the world, we got to wait a long time to get it. And in the meantime, our pumper, our 93, 94, whatever it is, it's done fine. But you know, we don't really have a backup, you know, that. So we talked about Tommy Anderson. What a great man. 50 years in the fire service, retired from Santa Fe, Texas, down in Galveston, down there in Galveston. And now he's like president of the board, or one of the board members, or I think he's president of the board. He retired and handed off the baton. And he donated the pumper to us, which is phenomenal. It's a great pumper. But so the topic came up, or the question I should say, about our hose legs. You know, our hose, you know, you and I have done shows, how many lines do you carry on your rig and that kind of stuff. And this thing's got a bumper line that we're going to be able to do the, you know, 50-foot stand on that side, then 100 feet connected for like that car fire or that dumpster fire, stuff like that. Or you could just pull it out and go, here's another 50 feet connected and go. There's 4 cross legs, 4. And they're all like 200 footers, 1.75 inches. But what we talked about was doing 2 200 footers and 2 250s, because we have some long stretches with the setbacks and that. The discharge on the back, there's a light tower stuff. Now they used to carry, John, 1,500 feet of 5-inch on this rig, because they've got some hydrants on a lot of rolls, a lot of long stretches, right? And their new pumpers in Santa Fe carry 2,000 feet of 5-inch each because of that. So my first predicament, and you know, it went to my chief, is where are we gonna get the 5-inch? Because we've got like you know, 400 feet on one rig and like 400 feet of 4-inch on a tender, and just getting messed up and everything else, because we have to do over the years and done good at Wichita West. Like I said, great fire department. But so, you know me, I did you saw my little Facebook post about, hey, we're looking for 5-inch, and it has to be serviceable. Oh my God. We had people step up, some great people that we're going to talk about again, another show. 1,000 feet in the boxes, 1,000 feet, brand new, 300 feet in the boxes, and then a whole bunch more over 1,000 feet. It was just, so now we're going to be able to, and I think the goal is with the chief is I think we're going to do the 1,500, because we are like a handful of fire hydrants, and a lot of areas is rural. And there's been times we've been just short of a hydrant, or we need to get out of the way and pump back to somebody or whatever. And going from 400 to 1,000, let alone 1,500. And what I want to do, John, is I want to take the guys out with a measuring wheel, and go, okay, let me do my little serpentine, like you would, like it's a 5-inch, going down the street, and go, you know, hey, down here, this, because I think a lot of people, if you haven't laid it out measurement wise, you know, it's, right. You know, when we're looking at a house for size, if we know their front doors are 3 feet wide, so you go 3, 6, 9, you know, whatever. But knowing how much is 1,500 feet. So the question comes up, okay, so 5-inch, 4-inch, doesn't matter, you know, 2.5 or 3, whatever you're doing in your department. So what's FDNY do for supply line?
3.5.
3.5. So 3.5. Some places are 4, some are 5, 3.5, some have 3, whatever. So I guess let's talk water supply, and let's talk water supply with like the lines we just talked about, LDH, or you know, 3-inch, 3.5, which would consider LDH, right? And then maybe tanks, because that's the other thing that came up, is our pumper we have now is 1,000-gallon tank. The tanker, the tender, has 2,000. So we can get 3,000 going pretty quick and then get help coming. This pumper we got from Tommy from Santa Fe, Texas, is 750. But we've got water coming in behind us pretty quick. So it's not 500, still 750, which could do a lot of damage. But we got to have something to back it up. So I guess let's throw this out. I ask you, where do you want to go with this? You want to talk supply lines first? You want to talk tank water and quick
Well, let's talk
attacks?
tank water first, because tank water, if you have tank water and you're going to use it, that's the first thing you're going to use. Even though you might stop en route and drop a line, lay it in, and stuff like that, you're still going to stop at the fire. You're still going to probably pull an attack line and dump the booster tank into your attack line.
And how many times have you said we don't carry that water for like just car fires?
Right. It's not for ballast. It's not to make us turn better on turns and stuff like that. It's not to hold us on the highway with extra weight. The water is to fight fire, and to fight fire quick upon arrival, regardless of what else you're doing, whether there's somebody else coming in to lay a supply line, whether you dropped one on the way in, tank water. And listen, and it's not only for companies that are pulling up right in front of the fire building and using pre-connect, because the FDNY, we use tank water often. And for years, all we had was 500 gallons. And we would stop at the building. We go right to the front of the building first. We rarely, if ever, lay a line in. We pull the 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is we need to stretch from the front of the building into the fire floor. And then the rig drives away 1 length, 2 length, 5 lengths, whatever it is, to the next hydrant. And that's still the same line now. The 5 lengths that are off are connected to the hose bed. He drives away, keeps on laying it. And then he ends up at a hydrant. And occasionally we still do say, give me water, whatever you just give us the booster right now, because he's still either checking a hydrant or still making a last minute connection. But without getting distracted by the FDNY operation. So let's talk about booster tanks first, and the different options and what works.
Because some departments don't have, like a lot of our areas, like the past couple of good structure fires we had, there's no hydrant. There's the hydrants were like down the street, down this street, way down there, and some of them were further than like 1, 2, 3, probably 1, 2, 3, 4 city blocks that way and 3 the other way. Some were like, you got to drive like way down there and fill your tank.
And now I remember Mineola, where I first started in Mineola out on Long Island, right here where we are now. Volunteer fire department, I think it's a 2 square mile village with a lot of people, 35,000 or more people. And I was as a young man, a member there. I was in a truck company, but I remember the engines, if I remember correctly. We were looking at like 300-gallon booster tanks, because everything had hydrants. Hydrants were everywhere. Right. So there was no area where you had to go 500 feet or 1,000 feet. There was no such thing as LDH or anything like that. So they were able to connect the hydrants readily in the village. So they had a very small booster tank, which just by the number was rarely used. I think eventually, and I'm not sure, but I think eventually they end up with 500. More modern pumpers, I'm sure, in Mineola probably still have 500 gallons of water. But whether you have 500, whether you have 750, let's talk the mainstream sizes: 500, 750, 1,000. That's what everybody has, something in that realm. And all of those, all the way down to 500 gallons, that's dispensable water. That is usable water. If you pull up in front of a house, you've got pre-connects, 3 lengths or 4 lengths. There's plenty of water in a 500-gallon tank for it to be charged, for a booster to be charged, not a booster, excuse me, a pre-connected line to be charged with the booster water, the booster tank water, and fight fire. Absolutely. And, we've had that discussion in our scenario-based programs. We've had that discussion in some of our other engine company programs, where don't hesitate at all. I mean, you have to use a little bit of caution when you're using booster water, because you want to make sure you don't run out, but you'd have to be almost criminally liable to run out of water by surprise. You know it's coming. So
where I'm going to go with this when it comes to how much time you have with your booster tank, with your tank water to fight fires, before we get to the whole supply line thing. So what are your concerns? And again, let me ask you this way, the whole fire service. You got New York City's got hydrants, and you got Wichita West, where we have a handful of hydrants. We have a lot of rural areas. So what are your concerns? What are your thoughts? You mentioned one already, but expand on it a little bit about, okay, we're pulling up with tank water, guys. What if you were sitting around and the guys would say, okay, chief, or cap, so, all right, we have no hydrants in that side of town. All right, if we pull up and we got our tank water, what tell us what you want us to do, how you want us to do it, and what are our limitations?
Right.
Because I know as a company officer, I know what you want me to do and where you want me to go. But chief, I want to be on the same page. What would you tell them about, okay, if we're going to go tank water till we get the tankers coming, the tenders, whatever you call them, and get this stuff coming, or get lines laid, these are my concerns for you.
Right. So obviously, if you have plenty of hydrants, which you don't on some areas, right? They have plenty of hydrants. Using tank water is the easiest thing in the world. You can lay a line in, or by SOP, you can have your second due engine coming in, whether it's your own or a mutual aid company, and you can still, either lay that line or not lay it. Some guys just zoom right to the front of the fire building, and Wichita, for example, if I remember correctly, I think my son said they drive to the front of the building, they get there, and then water, they figure out supply line next, and I may be mislabeling that. I'm not sure if they figure it out. Then they may have an automatic situation, a procedure where the first due engine goes as quickly as they can right to the front of the fire building. They pull a line, they drop the booster tank, and they get water on the fire as fast as they can. And there's a secondary operation underway by another pumper or maybe a hand stretch to a nearby hydrant. Now, you just said, well, what about Wichita West? What about the area in town where there's no hydrants? Well, that brings up a challenge, right? So the challenge is I got a 500 or even a 7, or let's use your 1,000-gallon tank. You roll up with a 1,000-gallon tank, unless you got a mega mansion, unless you got a gigantic barn that's 400 by 400, like Yellowstone on TV, a house
Is
fire.
that a show?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a show? Okay.
So you can
He loves the show. That's why I said
I do. So you got a house going, a couple of rooms, a couple of windows. Obviously, with a 1,000-gallon tank, you go right into operations. You almost certainly you're not even going to run out of water. You're probably going to knock the fire down, maybe even completely extinguish the fire before you run out of 1,000 gallons of water. And you and I both know, and this is not the exclusive way or the best way or the only way to do it. I liked pulling a line, charging it, front door, the whole 9 yards. Into the building we go, into the house we go. Let's talk residential fires, right? Into the house we go, to the right, through the living room. We get to the door of the bedroom that's on fire and starting to burn through. We're ready to go. We hit it and shut it. Hit it and shut it. If you're going down a hallway where fire's coming down the ceiling at you, open it, hit it, shut down, crawl a little bit forward, open it, hit it. Now, there's guys out there, what's his name from 69 engine, 28 truck, doesn't like that, likes to keep it open, doesn't like shutting down and opening up, shutting down and opening up. And, and he's got his way and I got mine.
Right.
I like the shutting down because it does two things for you. Now, I know saving water doesn't sound like it. If you're not applying water, then obviously you're not extinguishing anything. You're not reducing any fire at that moment. But I think the volume and the thrust and the penetration of the water coming out of a good 1 3/4 line with proper pressure is sufficient enough to be able to shut down, move up 5 or 6 or 7 feet. You push the fire and the burn area way away from you. Then you can pull 5, 6, 7 feet or whatever it ends up being until you encounter, and then you can reopen it again. You can do it at intervals. I like that interval firefighting.
Well, and I told you about the time, helping Fox News with stuff. James Rose called me. I was up in Canada. He goes, "My chief, where you at?" And I said, "I'm in Canada." He goes, "Okay, I'm going to show you a video clip. Tell me what this kid did wrong." He got caught wearing a helmet cam and posted it. And I go, "Well, what department?" He told me department. It's a large metro department. I said, "Well, number one, I know they don't have a social media or an imaging policy. So what are they going to hold him on? And unless he puts them out there, he shouldn't put. How can you bang someone for posting something when you don't have somebody that says don't post?"
Right.
So anyway, I think I told you about this. So I'm watching the video, and the engine's coming on the street, and he's looking over his shoulder in the jump seat, and you can see there's smoke. Pulls out. He gets off. You see him look up. He grabs a pre-connect cross light, front yard, dumps it. And you see him throwing it, and then he looks up, and you see his captain. His captain says, "I'll be right back." So 1-story frame, little shotgun house, fire below at the front, big time fire out the back, fire below at the front door, wood frame. So you see the captain disappear doing his 360, and he's flanking all, and he calls for water. Charge line. So helmet upside down, you're watching the camera, helmet back on, he's masked up, he's not snapped in yet, but he's all ready to go. Bleeds the line. Here comes the captain. Hey, we're gonna hit it from the front. Off we go. Okay, you ready? All right, snap. Okay, ready? No. Stay right here. Stay off the porch, right here. Boom, hit it. He opens up, John, just like you said. He hits it. There's fire come out the front. Pushes it. Boom, knocks it. Jumps up on the front porch. The captain goes, "Okay, hit it again." He opens up again, and I'm going. Go team, go.
Right.
He gets inside, and now it's a little like foggy, a little steamy with the camera. All of a sudden, you see orange. Boom. He goes. By the time he was done, and I called James back, James says, "So what'd you notice wrong?" I said, "Oh, I suppose we're looking for something wrong. This should be a training tape."
Right.
They had a shitload of fire, and he went boom, boom, boom. A little bit longer than that. Hit it.
Right.
I mean, so and I guess it's up to whatever your particulars are. That's
Right.
like smooth versus fog, PPV versus vertical, whatever it is. Well, whether you like to go in with it the whole way, like you see some
Right.
guys kneeling, half walking, and they keep the line open all the time.
And the important point here is we're not here to talk about advancing the hose line. We're here to talk about water supply.
Right.
And the important point is if you do what I like doing, and many other people like doing, there's plenty of people like different ways. What's great about it is you're saving a little water. Every time you shut it down for 2 or 3 or 4 steps, that's 2 or 3 or 4 steps that you still got in the rifle. Yes, that's ammunition you still got now to spend when you get a little bit closer to the fire. If you suddenly encounter a larger room than expected, or suddenly encounter, holy crap, there's 2 rooms going back here. So one of the benefits, I think, of the open and close, the intermittent use of the stream on interior firefighting for, private dwellings is that it makes the supply line last. Now, if you arrived with 500 or 750, you're talking 1,000. That it even becomes more important. Suddenly now your manner of actual fire attack has a dramatic effect on your water supply operations.
But John, we've talked about this a bunch of times, both in class and on this show. How many firefighters, we go visiting somewhere and they're showing us their pumper. And you go, so what is that? 1.75 to an inch, 1.75? We know, we just ask them. Right. So what kind of nozzle is that? You've heard me say this 1,000 times. It's a double upside down, Fanguli,
right? Rotatable,
whatever. Right, yeah. What does it flow? 100. So
I don't know.
So they don't know. So I go, okay, what do you carry? Let's say 750 gallons of water. Okay, this goes back to an incident I had with great firefighters, great captain, good fire blowing out a window, and they were all sideways about getting a 5-inch. I'm like, no, get in there and get after this. I have the next 2 engine bringing you a line. So we got back, and you know where I'm going with this. Right. And I'm like, what was wrong? Well, I don't want to run out of water. I said, how much water do you have? They all brought the chairs into the office, right? They're all going to talk. I said, how much water? 750 gallons of water. Okay, what's our nozzles flow?
And before you even get into that, every minute that they wasted talking about or dealing with the 5-inch hose and they didn't flow using booster water, they had already run out of water.
I know you always say that. If you choose not to use your tank, you already ran out of water.
That's right. That's right.
And I love when you say that. So, and I'll go back to this for some of our viewers. My best buddy here has a wee bit of experience when it comes to fighting fires. I'll just say that, I'm being sarcastic. It's more than a wee, obviously. So that being said, I'm like, so how much time do you have? What do we flow? And like, so what are you going to flow? 150, 175 out of your nozzle? You want to call it 150? You want to call it 175? Whatever it is, I don't care.
Call it whatever you want. This is not so technical scientific stuff.
So let's do this. So okay,
somebody right now is shaking their head because I just said that. Because I know if you want to create this into a technical situation, you can. You can start talking about pounds per square inch and gallons per minute and all this other nonsense and double jacketed and single jacketed. Did you know this kind of hose versus this kind of hose will give you 75 more gallons a minute? But the bottom line is we're looking at 150, 160, 170, 180, somewhere between in that range. And all of those numbers work just fine in residential fire.
So the point is 750 gallons of water. And I said this, I said, tell you what, so how much time do we have?
If that evolution that we do in the scenario class.
The class. So how much we're going to do it tomorrow. So how much time do we have? What do you mean? How much? Well, 750 gallons of water divided into your GPM. Well, okay, tell you what, you lost 50 gallons of water on a little trash can fire. You had 700. Well,
put 150 into 700.
It's like, okay, so 5 minutes, 4 minutes. I said, tell you what, you had a car fire, little engine compartment, and you're down to 500 gallons of water in your tank, and you pull up. How much time do you have? Well, with this much GPM, it's 3 minutes. Okay, I'll open the door to
so right off the bat, people are saying 3 minutes. Holy shit, that doesn't sound like much.
Right. So what we talk about, you and I talk about it all the time. I say, okay, I got the guys right. I got the door open for you. In they go down the hallway. They make a left, and they're at that room that's roaring.
There's the fire.
They open up the nozzle, boom, fully.
Start the clock.
And we start the clock. And I'm going, and I said, and we're flowing water, full stream, full boat, doing our own thing, right?
Shut it down. Nope. Keep it open.
Because we don't, and, I mean, I'm always like, so do we flow the whole time? No, forget it. It's wide open right now. First of all, if you go in there and you lay on the floor and you throw 500 gallons of water and it don't do nothing, you crawled in the wrong building. Sorry. I mean, I'm just saying, but unless you're spraying it out a window, we just said it. You hit it, you push up, you hit it, whatever. I'm just, and if I go, are we at a minute yet? No, Chief, right. You're not even at 30 seconds yet.
Right, not even at 30 seconds yet. This whole time that we're talking, this evolution is still unfolding now.
And then I start doing the elevator music. I'm like, What are we? Are we at a minute yet? No, we're at 45. All right, God, this is gonna take.
And do you have another engine coming in? Is there somebody else? Yeah, it's usually get in about 2.5 minutes after the first two engine. So they're probably still maybe a minute out since we still started just initially pulling the pre-connect. Okay. So what are you up to now? They're not even up to a minute yet, just for 55 seconds, Chief. So, and we could do this 2 more times. And if you had just a room on fire in a house, just a bedroom, how could it not be completely extinguished by now?
Right. And even so, and let's say it's not, let's say it's more than that. Tell me you're not making a dent in the fire, doing something with the water you drove all the way from your firehouse to the scene with. Now,
and you're not doing intermittent application. You're doing solid opening that line and keeping it open and moving in and whipping and whipping and whipping, and you never shut it down yet. If you're shutting it down when that minute mark hits, you're not going to have used 150 gallons. You're going to have used 68 gallons.
I told guys, do this, your next acquired structure in your burn building. Just go inside the room and open up the nozzle for 3 minutes. Just open up your nozzle for 3 minutes.
If you can make 3 minutes, they're going to get tired of it and shut it down at 2.5 and say, all right, you made your point.
You'll be flowing all your bales, everything else. But so let me just make a point here, though,
and this is 500 gallons, pretty much the smallest you're going to see anywhere.
That's right. There are some 400s on some quints, but you're right, 500 gallons of water, and I even took away their other water from. Now, for our listeners, John and I are not advocating that you don't think about a sustainable water source. We've said this before.
We just haven't started talking about it yet.
That's right. You are always thinking about backing up that line with either a hydrant, a supply line, a tanker, whatever you're doing.
And whoever it is, whether you laid it in, whether somebody else is going to lay it to you, whether somebody else is going to get into the building and drop the other end of the hose and lay out and maybe even positions himself on a hydrant or a source.
Exactly. I'll go so far to say this, and it worked very well in Louisville. The second due engine's absolute priority is to ensure the first engine is sustainable.
FDMY, same thing.
Either bring a line. Now you'll hear this. You'll hear engine 164 is on a hydrant. That doesn't mean he's or she's looking at a hydrant. It means on, plugged in, hooked up, flowing water. Good hydrant. That means, you know what that tells engine 3? I don't have to worry about it. They have their own, unless they call me now. Engine 3 second due, they're going, okay, we don't have to think about water supply. Now we think about a second line to either fight fire or back up or whatever.
Right.
That done. So we're not advocating. Please don't think that. Someone said that once. I said, no. I'm gonna go back to what my buddy John has said for years. You're bringing the water with you all the way from the firehouse.
Get it in the hose line.
You pull up a commercial building, it's through the roof. Of course. I mean, come on. You're gonna try and give me a supply line, all this, but you've got, first of all, as Clint Eastwood would say, and this is a man or a woman now, got to know their limitations. You've got to know your limitations, how far you can end up and what you can do and how much water.
So let's set the stage.
But you have to be educated.
Right. So the stage here is a private dwelling, a house fire. That's what we're talking about. Residential building, right? Could even be a 2-story apartment building. But we're talking residential fire, 1 3/4 hose, and we're talking initial fire attack. We're talking just getting the line off the rig, water into the line, and off we go. Not fire through the roof, not fire out 8 windows, not fire, none of that kind of stuff. Then that changes the whole scenario. But we are talking about getting that initial operation underway so we can get some water on the fire and stop the spread.
Well, and let me just throw this out here. So for those like some of us that are volunteer departments, you always talk the 2 response times to the station and to the scene. You pull up and it is in the attic and it is starting to work way through the roof. Well, that's where, we always say, show me the fire. So you have maybe a room and kind of got up into the attic or whatever. This is where having one of your guys or gals with a good hook going in there for the nozzleman, pulling ceiling and taking that line and throwing it into the attic. Still, think about this. That is in most cases, residential structure, not always, there's some flat. Most of them are a peak roof or an attic space.
And not real high.
And it's not even a full floor. It's almost a third of what an attic
from the peak down to the ceiling of the first floor could be 5 feet, 6 feet.
Yeah,
max.
It's not it's not like a whole second floor. You could do a lot of damage to the fire by just throwing water into the attic. And if you still have roof assembly left, it ends up like when they talk now with the smoothbore, when you get up in there, and it's a fact. If you throw the water in the transition, if you throw the water and hits the ceiling, it is an absolute fact that it goes shoof left to right.
Right.
Now you're doing the same thing. You're shooting up in this attic, water's bouncing off stuff, and you're buying
steam
some time.
starts being created, displacing the oxygen and cool and everything.
For the next tanker to get there or to get the line laid or whatever, Now, let me throw this in real quick before we move on. I love what you describe when we talk about watching the fire videos and how it pisses us off. We see people pull up and drag their feet. And you always say it's like they're at a picnic, walking around. There's someone's house is on fire. We don't advocate running, but we advocate like
hustling.
Stockton, California's, they work at a rapid pace.
Hustling.
I love the hustling. You know what? When it comes to water supply, to back up that initial tank water, that quick attack, as we call it, forget forward lay, reverse, whatever you're doing, you know what? You've got to hustle, get water. We suck without water. So your job getting in there is to bust your ass to get in and get them aligned and sustain their operation.
Right.
If this is a house fire, in most cases, it's a 1 or 2 line job of each 3/4. So we need to provide enough water to supply 1 to 2 lines. So you know what? Everything changes. Guys, Tommy, get me in there. Come on, we got to get them aligned. Where's my hydrant? What am I doing? You know what? All right, tank or 2 when you get here. We need you right here. Give me your water, because how many times you've been there where we are moments away from knocking it down and we lose our water, we lose our ground we just fought for. And you're like, guys, what happened? Well, we were a little late getting out the door. Oh, here we go. We're a little late getting out the door, or we made a wrong turn. We had a fire not that long ago, John, in Wichita West, house going. We were starting to make headway. I'm watching them do this. And unfortunately, a mutual aid tender we had went to the wrong address. They went to a whole nother town and went to the same street in a whole nother town. And I kept going, any minute, they're going to be pulling around that corner. Any minute, they're 3,000 gallons, and we're going to kill this thing. We're going to kill.
Over.
And then when I heard them say I went, it's like, someone let the air out of my blood. I went, we're done. And now we're backing out. We're losing the house. And I'm like, we were that close to knocking this fire, and one person going to the wrong freaking address screwed us.
And that's why this is very important. This discussion that we're having today, this episode of Old School, is so important, because it's almost like a dance recital. You have to be able to balance your initial fire attack operation with your booster line, with your booster water, excuse me. You have to be able to balance that along with your supply operation that really has to be going simultaneously, whether it's a line that you dropped and somebody else is going to get to the end of it and connect it for you, or whether you didn't drop a line and somebody else is going to roll up opposite direction from you, drop a line for you, and then roll down the block a couple of lengths and connect for you. So both of these things have to be underway, and you just can't allow too much time to pass with using booster water, even if you get 1,000 gallons. Now, I've never ever worried about running out of water with 1,000 gallons at a private dwelling or at a house fire. I just simply can't do it unless it was beyond your control when you got there, out 6 windows and into the attic. An ordinary interior aggressive attack for a room or 2 of fire, out a couple of windows. There's nobody in the world that has any basic skills that shouldn't be able to get there with a 750 or 1,000 gallon tank, pull the 2 or 3 length booster to the front door, charge it, bleed it, get in there, and I'm telling you, I think you should be able to finish the operation. Not drive home and never get the supply line. That should still be underway. Right. But by the time they get it done, and you say, okay, turn the hydrant on here. We got positive water supply. There should be steam coming out the windows at that point.
Well, and I want to point something out, because you said something I want to mention, because we have people from all over listen to us, all walks of life in the fire service. When John says booster, he's not talking booster line, the red line, the hard line.
Right.
So Fort Worth,
I'm talking booster tank water.
40-something stations. They refer to the big booster and little booster. You know what the little booster is their 1.75 line.
Right.
And the big booster is a 2.5.
Okay.
So because I asked Homer, my buddy, our Homer Robertson, I said, all right, buddy, I got the buck page. This is years ago. Did I see? No, that's not the booster line, the red line or the hard line. The big booster is the 2.5. Right. The little booster is the 1.75.
Well, number one, FDNY doesn't even have booster lines anymore. Been a couple of decades since we've had the actual hard 1-inch booster line. We don't even have them anymore, because you know what? They end up getting abused, and we've all heard the famous fires where booster lines were used for a long time and with actual reasonable success, but ended up being, very, very ineffective. So we don't even use a booster line anymore. And I'm not saying if you do use a booster, it's a waste or you shouldn't. I'm saying the application for a 1-inch booster line for fighting fires is so limited. Even the expense of the booster reel and the hose and everything else and the piping, compared to just pulling a line off the front bumper 2 lengths, or pulling pulling a pre-connected line of 3 or 4 lengths for a car fire. There's so many other things that can be used without adding the expense of adding these big reels and this 1-inch red hose.
Exactly.
So we don't even use it anymore. And again, just because we don't doesn't mean it's useless. If you have it and you want to continue to have it, knock yourself out. But when I say the word booster for today's program, I'm talking about the booster tank. Let me leave the word booster out. Let's just talk about tank water. Dump the tank, give me tank water, and whatever it is you're carrying whatever you're carrying in your tank, in your engine, should be the first water to go through the attack hose line. That should be the first water. Even if simultaneously you've laid a line and now somebody's just reaching the hydrant where you have it keyed and left. You didn't even, now they're going to get to it. Check the hydrant real quick, connect, charge it. Now suddenly you're going to get water coming down to you, and you're going to be able to maybe take a 500 or 1,000-gallon tank that's been depleted halfway. Now you're going to put your water supply on. You're going to start to refill it, and now you're going to say it. 4H Joe for the 4A, we're on hydrant water. 10-4 Willie, thank you. And now just operate to your heart.
We had that conversation about, a lot of guys don't know you can actually charge lines without using your tank water. You don't have to use your tank water, but the older rigs didn't have that flapper in, and the newer ones all have the flapper. So you're flowing tank water, water's coming out of the tank into the hose. And now you get a positive source, you get a hydrant, or you get a tanker, tender or whatever you call it, giving you water. That flapper is going to close off your tank. You can still have it in tank to pump, because that tank to pump is telling you tank to pump, and that's where your water's coming from. But I've always been one, me personally, like you just said, if I used half a tank or 3/4, whatever, as soon as I get it, first thing I do is I crack it up, I start filling my safety tank up. I want my water, I want my tank full, because that is my backup. I have to get them out. We burst the line, whatever.
Even with a supply line, somebody come in with a rig and not see a hose and run over a hose, a police car, bust your 5-inch line, you're down to zero again. Now, thank goodness you filled up
you filled up, and then I can open up again, or the newer rigs with the flapper, it just opens back up and you get your water. But so
go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, so we talked about the quick attack, if you will, come pulling up and going to work with your tank, how much time you have, and we kind of went through that briefly about
way more than you think.
Way more than you think. So do you want to move? You want to talk supply lines? Now I say,
yes.
You say you want to drop and bring one in or whatever. So we're talking forward or reverse lays.
Laying in or laying out.
Laying in or laying out. Okay. You said before, or engine 2's out. We got a 2-story single family heavy fire show. We're going to work. Next engine, bring us a line.
Right.
Meaning next engine, bring my water, or bring water. Dallas says all the time, bring me water.
Now that's if the engine's going to be at the fire.
Right.
That's if you're going to use your pre-connects. If you have pre-connects, it means your engine is designed, laid out, and equipped to be in front of the fire building, to be close to the fire building.
Or for those, like I remember during Woodridge, we had pre-connects, but we also had the skid line in the back, and we always dropped it and let out. We always did a reverse lay. Right. We pulled up, we dropped that Y on the front lawn with 150 feet of hose, and a horseshoe, and down you went. And the driver can get off, break it, connect it, and charge it. The water would go up. When you drop the Y, you were dropping
the hydrant to the front of the building.
You were dropping the Y, and that's where I'm gonna leave it. And he or she could charge it because it was shut off. Bing, done.
Now what connected to that? What'd you attack the fire with?
Well, so the gated Y had like 150 feet of 1.75 inches.
Okay.
So horseshoe around it. So you grab this whole thing, the seat belts, right? You reach up, grab the horseshoe with the Y with the 2.5. You bring it over, boom, you drop on the front lawn, go. The engine takes off down the street. Chink, 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 chink. He gets there, breaks the coupling, connects his rear discharge, turns around and charges it right away.
And it's shut off almost the same as having a hose clamp.
That's right, because it gets right up to the Y, big, and now I'm in charge. It doesn't slow them down. He can charge it, and now he's working on his hydrant, doing all this other stuff, saying, he's in the middle, oh shit, now they want water. You run it back and forth. It goes right up to the Y and it's shut off. That's how it's all set up that way, shut off. And then I do it. And as I'm getting ready now, I flake out my hose, I get all ready. Oh, it's charged. I open up, I'm in control like a high rise.
Right.
Driver charges the standpipe to your
and then you open up at the valve.
I decide. So, and then when we get out of there, we leave it open for the tool truck, the tool chest or whatever, the ladder truck to get in front of the building. But so let's talk forward versus forward versus reverse, and maybe 4 or 5 inch or 3.5. Let's talk about supply lines.
What are you using 3.5? Everybody uses something different. FDNY doesn't use LDH routinely in our first alarm pumpers, or really in any of our pumpers. Some of our satellite unit have and stuff like that for multiple alarms. But FDNY, we get a big bed, a big compartment full of 3.5 inch hose, and all they do is pull that key hydrant. They could lay in all sorts of different stuff that you can do. FDNY doesn't need to have the engine at the
talk about keying a hydrant for some of the people may not have heard that term before.
Right. So keying or wrapping a hydrant is for a forward lay, for hitting a hydrant before the fire. You're going to stop, check the hydrant first. No sense touching, keying, or wrapping anything
So
around a
grab,
hydrant.
grab
that you
your
haven't
hydrant
tested.
wrench, or your hydrant bag, or whatever you need.
Right. City of Newburgh near me, a little city near me. Last time I looked, they had this big metal ring off the back of the engine hanging down. They actually took that ring. Hanging off that ring was a hydrant wrench and a maybe a little bag full of tools. They would take that ring, just drop it over the hydrant. Nobody had to do any wrapping or tucking it under or doing it right or doing it wrong. You put the ring over the hydrant and drive away. I can't recall if they used to have a guy stay there and connect it and charge it first, or if somebody else came and did that. But laying a line in is one of the best options for a rig that's going to be parked in front of the building. That's going to use pre-connects off the cross lane.
Laying your line in though, and I'll just jump in here. My concern for my driver has always been, make sure you're trying to drop your hose if you can.
Not down the middle of the street.
Right. So yeah, instead of taking up the whole street now, and now nobody can get down there. You know, I know some places that do their LDH all to one side. You know,
where you pack it in the hose bed is going to have an impact on where it lays in the street.
As that driver's driving, if it's off on the right-hand side, which is where they had it,
then he should be hugging the right-hand side.
Chink, chink, on the right-hand side, and we're hoping we can buy some pathway for anybody else coming.
Now there may be cars parked on the right-hand side. New York City has alternate side street parking, as other cities do. Maybe you have all cars on the right-hand side. Still doesn't matter. You hug the right side, the hydrant, the LDH, or 3.5 or 4 or 5 is all going to drop maybe within a foot of the edge of the cars, and it's still going to leave most of the rest of the street open for maybe another engine to come in, maybe for another reverse lay, maybe for a truck to roll in and get the front of the fire building.
So real quick, you know, I know back to the key in the hydrant, what I always like to see in our hydrant bags was, number one, obviously a hydrant wrench with 2 spanners. And I always liked having a gate valve in there. You know, now Chicago's got the 2 steamer, got two big, so they've got the ability to stick one on the one side. So many people waste, I think, ports on a hydrant. They just hit the big steamer and
everything else is done.
And I'm like, you know,
unless you have separate control.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you hit, let's say you hit the steamer with your LDH, whatever, we always said, look, you know, the gate valve goes in if you're going to hit the steamer, the gate valve goes on the fire side of the hydrant. So meaning, if I want more water, I can drop a 2.5 or 3 inch.
Revisit that same hydrant.
And there's a valve, and it's you know, once I flushed it, I spun the other side, and I still had that cap. I love some of the pictures that like Gordon Nord and Timmy Okoto
3 or 4 lines coming off one hydrant.
The whole hydrant. I mean, yeah, off the hydrant, and it's like, why would you? If the mains will supply some mains, you suck them out of the ground or collapse them.
Right.
But
and we're talking large fires here now. You don't need 3 or 4 lines off a hydrant.
Right.
For a bedroom fire.
But you pull up for a bed, if you're going to hit a hydrant, your hydrant bag should have a hydrant wrench, couple spanners. If you have LDH and if it's snapped or whatever, you need those, you know,
those wrenches,
the storage wrenches, and a gate valve. I like
a wire valve. Brush.
Well, and a wire brush, and the gate valve. So I can throw something on, you know, if you have the 2 pony lines, the 2.5s, I can put one on one side, a line on the other. If I hit the steamer cap on the hydrant, I could put one on the 2.5 on one side. It gives me a little more versatility.
You got ice on it from a small leak, or from its past usage, or from snow that's packed around a hydrant, or if you got some grease in the middle of the winter, 5 degrees outside. The last time they greased the hydrants, now it's all like chocolate, like goo on the threads. Get that wire brush, man. You can clean those threads real quick. And all of a sudden, boom, you're going to make a nice, clean hydrant connection, secure connection.
And for a reminder for that hydrant guy, and this is these embarrassing situations you don't want to end up with. Communication with the driver is huge before you charge that LDH, because if the driver's not ready, you're going to have that big ballooned up hose up at that bed.
And lots of places do have the hose clamp. So they lay a line going in, and the hose clamp is where? Right on the back step. You can't even get on the back step without standing on it. It's right on the back step, and they lay that line going in. And the first thing the engineer does, the engine chauffeur does, hops out of that rig, hits the air brake, runs to the back step, pulls that hose clamp out, and clamps it right on the line that is now pulled out of the hose bed and running down the block to the hydrant that he passed. And he clamps it right there, and now he has moved the hydrant to that spot. Now that's the hydrant.
The same thing you used to do in the old days with 2.5. You
that's
clamped
right.
it. So instead of somebody standing there going, God, I wish he'd call me or blow the air horn or whatever, you know what? Don't worry about it. The moment I stop, I'm putting my priorities, I put a clamp on it. So you can just do what you got to do.
And I believe they have clamps for the LDH as well. I think they have. I mean, can't use the old fashioned one, I don't think. But the point is, whatever you have the proper equipment for it. And if you're using 3.5 or 4 inch double jacketed hose, or if you're using 4-inch or 5-inch, that's the kind of stuff that you can do. And you can clamp it. And now the guy, and what does this affect? This affects staffing. So now we're looking at the small department that has 3 people, an engineer, an officer, and 1 firefighter. Where'd that firefighter get off? He got off with a hydrant, 4 lengths down the block. He's testing a hydrant. He's connecting a hose to it. He's wire brushing the threads. He's tightening it up. He's putting that other outlet into service already available for service. And now he's saying, "You want water?" Or he said, "I got the clamp on. Give it to me, Billy." And he turns the hydrant on. And now he jogs down the block. And now he's going to probably meet the officer at the front door who was already pulled the nozzle to the front door. And now he's going to be the nozzle, the backup.
And you've got a driver that as he or she stops and gets off, this was Rick luck. I get up, I look at the 5-inch and go, the coupling's sitting right here. Means I got to pull 100 feet off, or I got to pull my shorty and connect so I'm this is where the clamp or all this is important, because now I'm disconnected, grabbing my shorty out of the well or whatever. So I'm dragging 100 feet off or 70 feet and trying to lose it in the street somewhere.
Or you're doing nothing because you got a 1,000-gallon tank and you say, "You know what? Let engine 5 figure this out. Let the second due engine come in and figure this out. We do not have a supply. We're going with tank water. 10-4 engine 2. Now engine 5 knows, Billy, go around the corner. Let's lay back from the engine. Let's lay back to that hydrant instead of going in behind the truck."
Not everybody. There's a lot of rural departments, a lot of career departments with just a couple people on the rig.
Absolutely.
And so being able to figure this stuff out, and we'll go back to this. If you don't train on this, if you don't talk about this, the kitchen table, if you don't go out and see how far your hose goes, you're never going to be good at when it actually happens. So,
Right.
So 5-inch, 4-inch, 3.5, whatever, your supply line. We talked the forward lay leading in and keeping the hose off to the side or whatever you have to do.
As best as you can.
Clamping and hydrant and keying the hydrant, all this stuff, so on and so forth. The reverse lay, we talked about that. We're pulling away from the scene. We're going down to the hydrant, or we're getting out of the way or whatever. There's probably 25 different SLGs out there from 25 different departments on how to do this, because, and I want to go back to this because you said it, to their specific needs. How they do something in the FDNY or in Chicago or Los Angeles or Louisville, Texas or whatever may not work. You have to know what works for you and your department. What do you have? I already said it. You could collapse a main if you think you're going to pump like they do in Chicago, other places.
Out of a 4-inch main, that's right.
That's right. You might do. So you got to know your mains. You got to know your age, the mains. You got to know
your pump capacity, your tank size. And I've been taking pictures of hose beds lately because I'm in the process of developing a program, for this and a training program. And it's very interesting because, like you just said, every department is different, and there's so many factors that impact what kind of supply line you're going to have, what kind of attack line you're going to have, and one of them is staffing. And if you only got 3 people on a rig, that's 1 working firefighter with an officer like Wichita and many other places, and they have it designed for them. They have dead loads of hose packed. They got no cross lays, dead load with a couple of packs of hose on top. They're bundles of hose, right? Very similar to FDNY. FDNY has maybe 10 lengths of 2.5, reduced to 1 3/4, and 6 lengths of 1 3/4 packed flat, and maybe the top 2 in horseshoes, so they can be easily grabbed by one arm and the nozzle grabbed by the other hand. So the nozzle and then the backup guy can each pull a length off. We can have two lengths off the rig in 5 seconds, and then we get the control person. Again, our staffing is wonderful. So after 2 people walk away from the rig and start heading to the front door or to the stairway, the third guy can say 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they need 5 lengths. Well, there's 2, 3, 4, 5. He can pull the next 3 off into a pile on the street. Tell the chauffeur, "Go, Billy," and then he drives away because the hydrant's another 60 feet down the street.
But
right?
And like we said, for some places that have the captain's doing his 360, the driver's pumping, and 1 firefighter, you've got to know what you can do, what you can't do, and what your capabilities are.
Lots of places that firefighter is a busy guy. Obviously, the engineer's busy too. He's got his apparatus to deal with.
And
the officer's doing a 360. He's doing a mental size up and an evaluation.
And this is the same guy that's got to mask up, all out of breath after making a hydrant and doing stuff. This is a vital role because the majority of the fire departments across this country, that statistic-wise, data-wise, are running three-person engines. Some have 4 and 5. Some have 2, some have 1. All right, they're waiting for the cavalry to get there, but the majority is 3. So you better know.
And that 1-bedroom fire that's burning pretty good. If the officer's running around doing a 360 and the chauffeur's going to the hydrant, That single firefighter pulls a length or two off, dumps it on the front, runs back, maybe pulls another half a length off, then starts kicking it out and spreading it. So, on the front lawn, which is why we do that on private dwellings. We try and get all the hose out on the lawn if we can.
So what do you tell them? Let's wrap things up here. We talked tank water, quick attack. We talked, 3.5 to up to 5 inch with different configurations of supply lines, forward lays, reverse lays. We talked, a little bit of different hoses and how much time you have, a lot more time you have with your water and stuff. And real quick, wrap it up, advice on the supply line. Just
listen, I think the biggest point of tonight's class, of this program, I think the biggest lesson is the first water through your hose line at a house fire should be the water that you brought there with you. The tank water should be the first water through your hose line. It's already there. It's already connected to the hose. It's a matter of pulling a valve and you got water in your first pre-connect. As soon as that line is at the front door, you have water. You don't have to lay a line to get that water. You don't have to do anything. It's already there for you. The other stuff can be happening simultaneously, or someone else can come in there and help you with the other stuff. Or let's face it, in Newburgh, the officer pulls the line to the front door because the firefighter's still down at the hydrant, keying the hydrant and getting the hose line charged. He eventually comes back and maybe they get together and eventually move in. But so many things can be done at once, but wasting that water, not utilizing that water, because everything is about time. Water is important, but time is even more important. The faster you get in there with two people and start putting some water on the fire, you arrest the whole thing. You arrest the whole operation. The fire is stopped in its tracks unless it's well advanced past your capabilities when you get there. And I think companies ought to pay a lot more attention to getting tank water on the fire first.
Perfect. Another great show, buddy. Another great show.
Absolutely.
Another nice
concentrating on, of course, putting the fire out. And I'm a big advocate, as Rick is. We're big advocates on getting somebody in there to do a search. And, the only way to save people in a burning building, you got to put the fire out. But you know what? When you put the fire out, they don't float out with the water, or they don't roll over and go back to bed. Somebody's still got to go in there and get people that have been either knocked out or in bad shape. You still got to go in and rescue them. So, search and removal of occupants in house fires is still tremendously important, but nothing can, the hose line's got to get in there. The attack line's got to get in there as quickly as possible.
And that means practicing. That means stretching hose for training and stretching hose. You know what? Be a little competitive. Make sure you're the first one in the building. Make sure you're the quickest and most efficient crew when it comes to getting your attack line.
I got to lay one more thing in there. I remember being in Baltimore Expo and I met a fire chief from one of the surrounding departments, one of the career departments around there. And his department, because of a couple of snafus years earlier, and this is decades ago now, they changed the rules and they said, every time we're going to a residential report of fire or a structural report of fire, apartment houses, he said, you will drop a supply line. He said they could drop 3 supply lines a day every day and never have a fire. And then they roll it back up when it's nothing. Food in the stove, take up the line. They pack the hose back up. And you know what? You wear the hose out a little bit, but you also get real good at laying hose and real good at packing it. So I don't remember the department name. It was in the Baltimore, area, the Baltimore suburbs, something else to think about.
Sounds good. If they want to get a hold of you, email address.
Chief John Salka at gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. And we want to thank you. Tell your friends and neighbors about Old School. However you're listening to us, whether it's on iTunes or Spotify or the YouTube channel or whatever. Typically, again, no agenda. We just we love talking shop. So we hope you enjoyed it. We ask you every single time when we end this show and our other shows as well to please keep the men and women in our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. Remember, never forgetting means just that, never forgetting. Thanks again. God bless you. We'll see you next time.